Good morning, everyone. My name's Anna Palmer. I'm the CEO and one of the founders of Punchbowl News. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning in person and on the live stream for our conversation with Representative Garbarino. We are going to be talking about all things cybersecurity. Of course, there's no shortage of some news of the day. We're going to also get to my colleague Andrew Desiderio is going to join me as well for the lawmaker conversation. He's our senior congressional correspondent and has really been focused on cybersecurity this whole month with this partnership we've had with Google. We've been looking at the future of cybersecurity from the state of play, the legislative aspect, who the players are. And next week will be our final installment of this project that is going to focus on the megaphone. What are different industry groups, companies doing to kind of spread the message of cybersecurity across the country? Afterwards, I'm going to be joined by Marcus Jadot, VP of Government Affairs and Public Policy at Google Cloud, and we're going to do a fireside chat. As always, you can find Punchbowl News on all social media at Punchbowl News. We encourage you to share this conversation as well. With that, I'm going to welcome Andrew and Mr. Garbarino to the stage. Gentlemen. Thank you, sir. Absolutely. Appreciate it. All right. As always, we're going to do a little news of the day because there's no shortage here of things to talk about in the House. I'm going to start with that. Republicans still in chaos. You voted against Jim Jordan the last two ballots on the House floor. What's your gripe with Jordan, and who do you want to be Speaker?
Well, Jim, as some of his previous votes, and I voted against him as well as two of my colleagues on Long Island. As a member representing his district, he's voted against bills that were very important to New York. Hurricane Sandy funding, 9/11 healthcare funding. You know, we were disappointed in him voting against the CR just a couple weeks ago. So we're trying to. We're not necessarily opposed to him right now. Well, right now we are, but right now we're opposed. But he needs to, if we're going to support him, if he's going to be Speaker, he has to show us that he's willing to be Speaker for everyone, not just for his district. And these things are very important to our district, and we need to get some reassurances that they'll be taken care of.
Is there one or two things that you think you and your colleagues need to get from Jordan?
You know, we are having discussions about possibly getting a vote on SALT.
The infamous Sal.
Yes, you know, very important. And the current bill that came out of the House Ways and Means Committee does not include it,
right,
which is why it hasn't moved, because it doesn't have the votes to pass. So we're trying to figure out how SALT can be a part of that. No offers have been made. No offers have been rejected. We're just, as other people have said, discussions are ongoing. And there's some other things, you know, making sure flood insurance doesn't lapse, making sure, you know, there's a 9/11 healthcare amendment in the NDAA that we'd like to see continue, stay in, that it came out of the Senate, you know, things like that. And not having a government shutdown is very important to us. We have a lot of federal employees in our district, and it just doesn't look good.
Well, it's not looking very good right now, but why don't we get over to...
Yeah, we'll see. Come on.
to Andrew.
Still early today.
It's good to be optimistic. I appreciate that.
Congressman, another big issue right now, obviously, the ongoing conflict in Israel. The president is going to address the nation from the Oval Office tonight. He's going to touch on not only Israel, but also the war in Ukraine. What do you make of his approach there, tying those two conflicts together? Is it a mistake to loop in Ukraine with something like Israel? Israel, obviously, there's broad bipartisan support, whereas with Ukraine and your own party, there are a lot of internal divisions right now. Yeah,
I think it's, you know, politically, Ukraine is a hot potato for some people. I think tying them together, we have to do it for both. I'm a supporter of Ukraine aid. I'm a huge supporter of aid to Israel. There is a provision I think the House would like to see attached to the Ukraine aid that has some oversight, additional oversight. It was in, I think, the FFOPS or SFOPS appropriations bill. We'd like to see that language included, just for oversight, just showing us where the money went. But I think tying them together is not a bad idea. We have to get them both done, so one vote is usually easier than two. I'm not sure some of my colleagues will agree. I don't know what but we have to been able to even consider this, we've got to get the House open.
Yeah, you got to get a speaker to vote on it.
One last question here, which kind of ties into what we were talking about before. Government funding, we're less than a month away from that running out. How concerned are you that House Republicans are going to shut down the government?
I think there's a very small group of my colleagues that would like to actually see a shutdown. Vast majority would not. And you even have Jim Jordan, who's running, who said he would put a CR on the floor to fund the government through February. So to give us enough time to get other appropriations bills done and hopefully go to conference with the Senate and pass bills like we're supposed to on an individual basis. I think there's more of a hatred in my caucus for an omnibus right now, but we'll see. I mean, we did get a majority of the majority for the last CR. Hopefully, we'll be able to do that again.
Okay, so topic of the day, cybersecurity. We want to touch on first, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer obviously has put a big focus on artificial intelligence. The Senate is going to really spend a lot of time on this over the next year or so. How much of a learning curve is there for members of Congress on something like AI, where the technological advancements are just so rapid?
Yeah, I mean, I think you still have members of Congress that call text messages emails. So I'm like, there's a steep learning curve, even for me. You know, it's because AI can touch so many different aspects. I mean, there's a whole cybersecurity aspect when you talk about AI, both on the offense and defense part of it. Workforce training. My colleague Lisa Blunt Rochester, she's here. She's the co-chair of the Future Work Caucus with me. And a couple months ago, we did a meeting where people came in and showed us how they're using AI to train workers, to transition workers from one career to another, and it was amazing just to hear what people are doing there. So, you know, AI and what we do, how we legislate on it, is going to have to go through several different committees. You know, we will have my Homeland Committee will have some say in it, but you'll have E&C and others will all be focused on it. It's going to be whatever we do, it's going to be a big project across several committees. But specifically on cyber, I have met with so many companies that are facing, you know, millions of attacks a day. Banks specifically, millions of attacks a day because AI, you know, bad state actors or non-state actors are using AI to try to break in. So now, you know, they're using AI as a defense, and it seems to be working. You know, it supplements what with their actual cyber workforce with people, but it's a huge issue, and we're going to have to. I don't know where we go from here legislatively, but it's definitely going to be a major focus, and educating members is probably going to be the first thing we have to do.
You serve on the subcommittee of Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Protection. Can you talk a little bit about the work and the focus that you've been doing on that subcommittee?
Well, this year, as chair, we've been. It's been a little more about oversight because over the past couple of years, through the NDAA and other pieces of legislation, we gave CISA, the Cybersecurity Information Security Agency under DHS, a lot of powers. And the Appropriations Committee this year, in our bill, just gave them a lot of money. And they've been getting a lot of money, rightfully so, by the way. I'm a big supporter of CISA. I think Director Easterly's doing a great job over there. I wish the administration would let her be a little bit more of a leader publicly. I think that's an issue right now where we don't have, if there was a big cyber attack tomorrow, you don't actually have, I don't know who the administration would put up as, okay, this is the go-to person. It's a little bit of a mess over there right now, but I think she's great. So oversight, our oversight is, when I say oversight, I mean making sure that they have the ability and the assets that they need to do the jobs, do the work that we've already given them authority to do. There's a lot of different programs out there, but that's a big thing we've been doing on. Workforce development is another huge thing that we've been focusing on, trying to figure out how to fill the cyber workforce deficit. I think right now, the numbers were just updated yesterday, over 500,000 openings in cybersecurity jobs, both private and public sector. That is a that is a problem. That is a huge, huge problem.
What role does Congress have in that, right? That's obviously a private sector. I'm sure for a lot of those, some of them are in the public sector. But are there things that Congress can do?
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. We can help give money to schools to. I'm talking about K through 12 to change curriculum so people are starting to focus on cyber at a young age. That helps get people into the cyber world. Also, whether or not there's a cyber academy. There's been a lot of talks about that. I know Senator Gillibrand from New York. She has an idea of what we can do. We did a smaller one in NDAA last year, which did specifically a cyber academy for DoD. How to expand that so we can really cut down on the federal shortfall workforce. But the problem is most of the jobs that are missing are private sector. But when the private sector owns over 80% of critical infrastructure, the government does kind of have an involvement. So making sure that there's a strong partnership between the private sector and public sector, and coming up with sort of a all of the above approach on how to do it. We're getting great ideas. Whether it's not something we can do legislatively, can you actually write a law? I don't know. But funding, coming up with programs to help with training, transition, those are all ideas that are being discussed right now.
You are a co-sponsor of the State and Local Cybersecurity Improvement Act, which was signed into law as part of the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Can you talk a little bit about the role that state and local governments play on this issue?
Well, the problem, you look at a state and local government, and my county, Suffolk County, got hit with a cyber attack a year ago, or maybe a little over a year ago, and the county was pretty much shut down for a year. Our election night results were very delayed because of it. When you look at a township or a small city or village or even a county, they don't always have the ability to have a CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer. They don't have the money because they're small municipalities. So the goal of this bill was to help them protect themselves, because again, it's when it comes to local government, there's still a lot of information. There's still a lot of it's part of its critical infrastructure, like a lot of water in municipalities. I have the Suffolk County Water Authority, which deals with all the water in Suffolk County. Nassau County has, I think, 30 smaller water facilities that's run by and they're all each their own little individual unit. So when you're not J.P. Morgan Chase and able to spend $1 billion on this and $500 million on that, you need to get help from somewhere else. And a lot of these municipalities, they need our help to do it. How
concerned are you that these counties and local jurisdictions are ready for the 24 election?
There's been a lot of work. CIS has been doing a lot of work on this. They've been training a lot of their employees. They have. I feel pretty confident that everybody will be ready for the 2024 election. I think they'll be ready for this election. Laurel Lee, who's a former Secretary of State for Florida, who sits on my subcommittee. This is talking about election and cyber has been one of her big things, and she usually focuses on that in our committees. I think she would agree that CIS is doing a pretty good job working with these states and local municipalities to make sure that these Board of Elections are protected. And there are people that are trying to. People are trying to get into everything. The bad actors are trying to get into everything they can possibly get into. That's how a lot of these guys make money. Or it's how a lot of them get their information. So.
You touched a little bit on this before, but in terms of AI and workforce development, what do you see as the opportunities there as well as the potential risks? Well,
the opportunities there is you definitely need to integrate it in. AI has to be, like I said, there's so many bad actors, and whether it's nation states like China or Russia or Iran or North Korea, those are the big four, or some criminal group that's just looking for money. They are using AI to up their attacks to millions of attacks a day on just one company. So an individual is not enough. I was speaking to one insurance company that said when we were hit with a cyber attack and we'd have to stop, an individual would have to shut down an entire sector to go in and find out where the problem was. Now they can use AI as part of their defense, and AI can run through these problems much more quickly. That it now, instead of shutting down an entire sector, they can just shut down one little floor or something until they find the actual problem. They've been able to use it for good instead of evil. Other than that, I mean, it's a good way to you're going to need AI to train these cyber to help assist these new cyber employees, because you buy the best cybersecurity product on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, it's already out of date, because AI is on the other side is coming up with ways to defeat it. So you have to every second you have to stay up to date on it. And AI is going to be I think it's going to be around it is around, and it's going to be the way we keep up with the bad guys.
How do you think the U.S. is doing kind of like globally when it comes to these issues, either the threats or the opportunities around? Are there other countries that are either doing it better or that we can learn from, or do you think the U.S. is really still the leading, kind of force on this?
I just led a cyber codel to several countries, London, Estonia, Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and they all want to have partnerships with us. They all every cyber person we met with, they're like, we love working with the U.S. You guys have the best information. Sometimes you don't share it as quickly as you should. I've heard that that's a problem. But when they want to partner with someone, they want to partner with us. They're not looking to go somewhere else. We do a very good job. I think our offensive capabilities are very good, but our defensive capabilities through information sharing, what we do with information sharing with the private sector. We have a very, very strong, our CIS has a very strong private sector, public sector partnership where a lot of good information is shared. Other countries, they want access to this. They realize that, and for us, it's good to have partnerships with these guys, because Estonia, the Netherlands, they might be the front line. They're the ones who might be getting tested out on first. Russia might say, well, let me see if this works on Estonia, and if it does, then we can try it out in the U.S. So that, making sure we have a partnership with them is good too, because they can also provide us information.
I want to talk a little bit about public and private partnerships before we go here when it comes to cybersecurity. Earlier this year, obviously, Senator Schumer from your home state of New York brought a bunch of the private sector folks, leaders in this field to Washington. Are there areas where you have seen public-private partnerships be successful here, and sort of what are the opportunities moving forward for Congress?
Well, absolutely. Like I said, public-private partnerships have to exist when 80% of critical infrastructure is owned by the private sector and run by the private sector. If there ever was a major cyber attack on the United States, you would need to have leadership in the government, but you have to have that partnership with the private sector, because they're the ones. It's their employees who are going to be the ones turning everything on. There was supposed to be a plan, a continuation of the economy plan that was supposed to come out of the administration. We passed a law, and they were supposed to send us a plan. Instead of a plan, they sent us a letter saying, "Don't worry, we got it." That really didn't make me feel warm and fuzzy. So there's an issue there, because don't worry, we got it is not a plan. It's like, well, what happens when the banking sector, the transportation sector, and the healthcare sector all shut down or the energy sector all shut down because of a major cyber attack? What do we do first? Who's in charge? And it's with those. And then, by the way, who are you talking to? Who's the leader in the banking sector? Who's the one that the leader in the government's coordinating with? Who's the one who's the leader in the transportation sector that we're coordinating with? Or who's the leader in the energy sector that we're coordinating with? Who's the private sector leader that we're coordinating with? And right now that we don't have that plan, the partnerships are there because CISA works with them all the time. It's great, but we need to develop these partnerships to actually be ready for a major cyber attack. I don't think we're ready right now. I think we could get things back up and running, but you don't want to wait for the cyber attack to happen to have your first meeting. Companies do this all the time. They have dry runs. They test runs to make sure that they know what happens. We should be doing that too.
All right, we're almost out of time, but project out 5 years. What's the one or two things that you think Congress should do on this issue that could maybe make this country more ready than it is today?
Well, workforce. I mean, we have to, 5 years. If we don't fix this workforce problem, that is probably the biggest threat that we have to our nation right now when it comes to cybersecurity is the lack of workforce, and the development of a team to a AA or AAA team to take these jobs. It's something we really need to focus on. So I've focused on it. The other committees are looking into it as well. I know Chairwoman McMorris-Rodgers wants to do something on workforce as well. This morning, Chairman Green is hosting a whole roundtable of all cyber subcommittee chairs from all the other committees. I'm here, so I couldn't be there. But to discuss that. Well, no, this is a lot more fun. Don't tell him I said that. No, but it's something everybody's focused on. Workforce has got to be the number one issue.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Congressman, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, take care. All right. Thank you, Andrew.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, now I'd like to welcome Marcus Jud, VP of Government Affairs and Public Policy at Google Cloud. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. I feel like we did a podcast earlier, maybe a week or so ago, so now it's good to put a face to a name.
It is. I will tell you, one of my favorite things in life, directors' chairs.
Really? I mean, I feel like we're already getting to know each other very well.
Yes.
This is going to be a great conversation.
Yes, they don't make them for wide bodies.
All right, so we just heard from the congressman kind
Absolutely.
of his takeaway of what the threats are, what's happening when it comes to cybersecurity right now. But I'd like you to set the stage. From your perspective, what do you see as the top cybersecurity threat that's facing the U.S. right now?
So I would say a couple of things, and the congressman really touched on both. In real time, we are seeing, and our colleagues at Mandiant, which has been a part of Google Cloud now for the past year, are seeing continued advancements from state-backed threat actors coming after U.S. networks. Most recently, we saw Microsoft's email system compromised and ultimately email communication from cabinet member exposed to Chinese-backed threat actors. We certainly should assume that will continue. They'll continue to make progress, and they'll continue to attack U.S. networks. We're also seeing, as the congressman said, AI being integrated on the attack side of cybersecurity. So at Google, we're focused on integrating AI tools into our enterprise offerings as well as into our own networks. We should expect more of that in the future, and it's important for us to accept that that threat will be out there, and we need to continue to move faster than the threat actors. I think it's important for the government to really think about putting a greater premium on security in its procurement of software. And that's, if not, we're going to continue to see the kind of activity that we saw a few months ago and 2 years ago and 2 years before that. So it really is important that the government take notice and do things differently on the procurement side.
I want to talk about kind of how this administration is, to your point, kind of where they're thinking, where their headspace is. But can you talk about how the Biden administration is prioritizing cyber defense, what you've seen kind of come out of that? Sure.
And I think, as the congressman said, the administration is appropriately focused on securing critical infrastructure. They've made it clear that that's their primary area of focus. I think that's appropriate, and will continue to be into the future. But again, the government needs to do more in skilling. Glad to hear the congressman focused on the public sector investment in education. in K through 12, community colleges, technical schools, across the board. It's really important that government plays a role alongside the private sector.
Yeah. AI, obviously a big topic of all over Washington these days. Yeah. Senate Majority Leader, as we were talking about, Chuck Schumer, held that AI forum to help get lawmakers maybe up to speed or start to think about AI. How do you see that kind of playing out in the coming months in terms of policy and really security policy?
It's so great to see the Congress, the Majority Leader, the White House consulting with the private sector and working hard to get this right. AI is incredibly important. We believe that it should be regulated. We also believe that it has to be regulated right. And so taking the time to get it right, I'm impressed that the government actually is focused on getting this right. It clearly is a huge differentiator for our economy and the U.S. tech industry. I think we need to do more to protect that lead. A part of, certainly the government has taken some steps in restricting the flow of technology. We also need to focus on running faster. Yeah. So any regulatory environment that is put in place needs to allow our American tech innovators to continue to innovate, and we just can't slow that engine.
And you're not waiting for government, right? Like, I mean, Absolutely. You're at Google Cloud. Can you share a little bit about how Google has taken on AI security and its own security standards?
Sure, and Google has deployed AI in its tools for well over a decade. And we worked internally for years to develop a framework based on NIST, on the NIST framework, to be responsible about that deployment. We are continuing to do that. I think the model that we developed at Google is one that other companies have smartly replicated, and we'll continue to provide guidance where we can to regulators in the U.S. and around the world.
We heard the Congressman talk a lot about workforce. You were kind of mentioning it a little bit earlier, but would love to get your kind of mind share here on what do you think needs to be done to encourage people of K through 12, but then maybe even the kind of reskilling or upskilling. Is there kind of enough in place to actually kind of fill those jobs, as the Congressman said?
There isn't. There clearly isn't. That's why we have 500,000 jobs vacant. But I do think that demand signal is important for both the public sector as they think about investing in education at multiple levels. It also is an incredibly important demand signal for companies like Google. We have focused on public-private partnerships. In 2021, Google committed to a $10 billion investment in improving cybersecurity globally. A big part of that has been focused on investing in skills development. We have partnerships that are focused on diversifying the workforce, as well as making certification programs available to Americans, and at this point have impacted learning for over 150,000 Americans, half of which are from minority groups. So we're working hard as a private company to have an impact. We're also, as I mentioned, making enterprise tools available to our customers so that while we know that that election boards and water districts can't find talent to fill those jobs, it's important to use best-in-class technology, including AI, to make sure that technology is available to fill the gap. But in the long run, we need to upskill our workforce. I really do believe that private industry and government get the demand signal. We see the opportunities. Students see the opportunities. Now we need to make sure that they have training platforms available to them to take advantage of those opportunities.
We're quickly running out of time, but I'm going to end on the same note I did with the Congressman. So he said workforce. That was the one thing that this audience should take away from the conversation in terms of being, prepared as a country, being prepared in the private sector. What's the one thing that you think the audience should, is it also workforce and kind of doubling down there, or are there other things that should also be kind of on the minds of the folks that are here working on these issues?
Yeah, I think workforce is incredibly important, and the congressman did a great job of talking through what the government is and should be doing. I also think it's important for the Congress and Americans more broadly to really understand where innovation comes from in our economy and what's needed to protect that engine of innovation. So thinking very carefully about regulations in the United States, which will allow companies like Google to continue to lead on AI and quantum and other emerging technologies in ways that the government can't afford to invest in and shouldn't, because the private sector is making the investments. I think it's also critical for our government to protect our license to operate in countries overseas. Again, those are, we are not able to innovate, we're not able to invest unless we're able to deploy our technologies and actually make money. So it really is critical that we invest in the fundamental infrastructure of our economy. Digital is a part of that. The government should invest in not just people, but also up-leveling our digital infrastructure so that we have secure networks, and they're secure by default. We should invest in our people, but we also need to make sure we have a regulatory environment that will allow American companies to continue to succeed.
All right, we're going to leave it on that note.
Great.
Marcus, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Admire what you guys have done.
Thank you so much. Really want to thank everybody for joining us in person and on the live stream, and of course to Mr. Garbarino and his team for coming on a very busy day to share his information and what he thinks is happening on cybersecurity. And a big thank you to Google for partnering with us on this event, as well as our overall project, The Future of Cybersecurity. Really encourage you all to check that out at punchbowl.news. Have a great day and stay safe.